Welcome, welcome, Mehdi.
Thanks for having me back.
Let's talk about political violence because there was an assassination attempt on Trump. The guy did not get anywhere near him. He was a floor away and 800 feet, and a lot of us were there, but it was still someone who he may have been a neoliberal, actually. I'm laughing not because political violence is
Yeah.
funny, but because a neoliberal is not who you think of
Ra-
generally as someone who
Radical
wants.
centrist terrorism.
Yes.
He's a blue sky guy. It's interesting because of the three Trump assassination attempts, we should be clear, he's the first clear Democrat. I know they claim that
Right.
the Democrats trying to kill Trump, but the first guy who
Yeah.
nicked his ear was a registered Republican. They always
That's
forget to
right.
mention that. The
And
second guy,
he was trained as a sharpshooter, right? That's why he was so good. Or he had had some military.
who the guy who
The
did
first
Trump?
guy,
I don't remember. They,
no,
they all
I
merge
don't
into
remember.
one. The Charlie
Yes.
Kirk guy, the
Anyway,
Trump one. But he was a registered Republican.
right,
And we
registered
don't, by the way,
Republican.
we don't hear much about him anymore. I always find that interesting. Same with the golf club guy. The guy at Mar-a-Lago was an independent. He was all over the place, his politics. And then there's this guy who actually, yes, clearly the alleged shooter, although he didn't fire a gun, it was the Secret Service who fired. Last Saturday, the alleged assassin was a Democrat. But, the right are so good at doing this. They're trying to kill Trump. I often have fun on Twitter saying, who's the they? Who is they?
Right.
Like they're trying to go. Chuck Schumer's plotting assassination attempts. Like it's absurd. Chuck Schumer can't even write a sternly worded letter. He's not plotting to assassinate Donald Trump.
No, he's
But they're
not.
so good at pushing this line. The one thing the right is very good at, they're not very good at governing. They're not very good
Right.
at telling the truth, but they're very good at message discipline. And so once
Right.
the line goes out, they all say it. And obviously, we've now seen revelations from Elon Musk's ex-girlfriend, mother of his child, now switching away from the conservative. She's been revealing about what happens in some of these WhatsApp groups and
Right.
group chats where they all have the talking points go out, the ballroom talking point goes out. So I think it's really interesting to look and see at how they've managed to persuade the American public. You look at the polling now. Americans are actually more concerned about left-wing violence than right-wing violence, despite the opposite being the case for the last 10 years, which, again, is testimony to the power of the media machine, because we don't talk about all the right-wing violence that is still happening, nor do we talk about the fact that every single empirical study, every single
Right.
academic study, every single government study shows that right-wing political violence is the biggest threat in this country, much bigger than left-wing violence going back 5 years, 10 years,
Right.
15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. That's what
Right.
facts don't care about your feelings, as the right used to like to say. And
Yes.
even the examples, they've just airbrushed out. They say stuff like, did you see someone recently, Molly, after say on Twitter, well, did anyone ever try and assassinate Barack Obama and Joe Biden? Yes, many
Yes.
times. There were bullets fired at
Yes.
the White House while
Yes.
young Sasha Obama was in the house.
Yeah. And also, let me add that Donald Trump truthed, or I guess it was tweeted back then, a picture of Joe Biden all tied up in the back of a,
Yes.
right, in the back
Yep.
of a,
He tweeted a video
pickup.
which had that image of Biden like hogtied in a
Yeah.
van.
Yeah.
I mean, don't even get me started on Donald Trump's incitement to violence. I mean, he hasn't
Right.
stopped even since the shooting. But this
Good
idea that
people on both
I mean,
sides.
the idea that either A, this is a left-wing specific problem, or B, a both sides issue, and all the evidence shows it's mostly the right, is insane. I
Yeah.
mean, eh, I get it. Americans have the memory of a goldfish. We know that.
Yeah.
Like it's 8 seconds we forget. But like Melissa Hortman last year in Minnesota,
Mhm.
murdered by a Trump supporter.
Her husband and
Her
the
and her husband and
dog.
others are injured. And the guy who did it, by the way, they refashioned that into, oh, he was a Tim Walz supporter. And it was like, no, he told The Blaze, I'm a 3-time Trump voter. The guy
Yeah.
who attacked Paul Pelosi was an election denier. They claim he was a
Yeah.
lefty as well. Like Cesar Sayoc. Remember the pipe bomber who sent pipe bombs in 2018 to every top Democrat in the country? Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, George Soros, Cory Booker. Like, he's in prison. He was a big
Yeah.
Trump supporter and Fox viewer. I could go through the list. It kills me to see this complete rewriting of history by the right.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. And actually, Cesar Sayoc had targeted a friend of mine who worked for Hillary, and it was a sort of point of pride being on that list because it showed that you really mattered to that guy in
Yes.
2018.
Well,
You know.
two interesting things about Cesar Sayoc some of your listeners and viewers might not know. Number one, when he went to court, his lawyer's defense was he watched Fox all day long. He
Right.
scheduled his entire day around Fox shows, his meals around Fox shows. They blamed Fox, interestingly. And number two, did you see the reporting recently that someone in the government tried to move Jeffrey Epstein into Cesar Sayoc's cell because they were hoping, apparently, that Sayoc would kill him?
That is
Crazy
an
little,
insane.
crazy little Epstein twist.
And we saw that there's an Epstein suicide note, right? That may or may not be legit. New York Times is reporting on. So there definitely is. By the way, the Epstein story has fallen from the news cycle because Donald Trump invaded Iran for no reason and made gas
Yes.
for $5 a gallon, right?
But the war is so bad in Iran that Melania Trump brought it back to Epstein recently with her random statement.
It is very strange. I mean, they are very disciplined, except when it comes to this, where clearly we're not getting the entire story,
Well,
and someday we will,
the Norah
right?
O'Donnell interview the day after the assassination attempt last Sunday for 60 Minutes, where Trump
Yeah,
lost his shit because
yeah.
she read out from this alleged manifesto that, I don't want a rapist, a pedophile, a traitor. And Trump said, I'm not any of those things. And she said, oh, you think he's talking about you? And everyone praised Norah O'Donnell for the little burn.
Yeah.
And it was a clever burn. But you know what? You know me, Molly. I prefer a tougher interview. I would rather she have said, when he said, I've never raped anyone, she should have said, well, a jury of your peers in
But
New York found you liable for sexual abuse. Isn't it crazy, Molly, that he's been president for a year and a half now and no interviewer has ever asked him about the sexual abuse case? Never. Never. There's been no TV interview where any journalist has sat down and said, you were found liable for sexual abuse by a jury of your peers in New York.
I was talking to someone off air who was talking about how Donald Trump he talks to Donald Trump because Donald Trump he basically talks to every mainstream journalist. He just
Yes,
calls them and they have his number and
yes.
sometimes and he was saying he asked him about the war and why we were on week 7 of a 3-hour tour. And he said, and he started screaming at him. And it reminded me of the time that I got screamed at by a certain Democratic politician for an hour on the phone. I can't say who because that politician said it was off the record, but he did scream at me for an hour. So let's talk now about Graham Plattner. The Democratic leadership is in trouble.
Democratic leadership is in trouble because they backed Janet Mills, the governor of
Right,
Maine, against a very popular insurgent, progressive, populist candidate, Graham Plattner. He's been leading in the polls by double digits for months now. She finally pulled out this week, accepted the inevitable. Very graceless statement. She didn't say anything of support for him against Susan Collins. Remember, she's pals with Susan Collins. That was part of the problem with the kind of
right.
establishment stitch-ups
But
there.
But the real problem was she's 78 years old.
Yeah, she
So
said she would only serve for one term.
right.
Kind of retired of that, I think, in the Democratic Party.
Yes, you cannot say that after Joe Biden, you cannot run for office and say you'll only serve for one term. She would be 84 when she was up for reelection,
Still
which
younger than
would,
Charles Grassley, but yes.
right, still younger than Chuck Grassley, but still pretty old. And again, the Senate is all about seniority. So let's talk about what you think went wrong there.
I mean, she was a perfectly decent governor, as far as I'm aware. She was popular. She won statewide office. But as you say, she was old. She was too friendly with Susan Collins. It's just not where the base is. The Democratic Party want fighters, not folders. You hear this line all the time from Democrats. Look at Talarico in Texas. These are the people they want. Look at Graham Plattner in Maine. Look at Zoran Mamdani. On the face of it, the three of them don't really have much in common in terms of their family backgrounds, their ethnicity, their religion, even some of their politics. But what do they have in
Right.
common? They are all running populist campaigns. They're all running insurgent campaigns. They're all willing to call out Republicans in a way that Democrats have not been willing to call out Republicans. And by the way, they've all taken strong stances on Israel, which I know some in the establishment say, oh, that's a foreign policy issue. No one cares about that. Actually, people do care about that. It helped Salarico in Texas that he took a very critical line of AIPAC in that race. It clearly helped Zoran Mamdani, didn't hurt him in New York.
Yeah.
And Graham Plattner has been very strong. I interviewed him recently on my show, and he was very strong about the genocide in Gaza and very, very critical of Israel and talking about how he will vote to stop weapons going to Israel to be used to kill kids. And I think we've
Yeah.
got to talk about all those issues. But of course, he's not a politician. He's an oysterman. He's a veteran. And he's said and done things that he's regretted. He's apologized for. Janet Mills tried to use it against him. Susan Collins certainly will in the general. Not
Right.
just the tattoo on his chest that he had to cover up because it looked like a
Right.
Nazi tattoo, but also things he said on various chat forums. But you know
Right.
what? None of that's hurt him in Maine, right? His polls keep going up every time there's a
Right.
story. It's kind of like Trump in reverse, I hate to say.
Well, I think that's a really good point, and I want to go back to the Middle East for a minute because Ken Martin, Democrats are having this real amazing fundraising year because the Democratic generic is 10 points. It's up 10 points. Okay. Democrats have the wind at their backs,
Hmm.
but the DNC cannot raise money. And it is being helmed by a guy called Ken Martin, who is very pleasant and he's Minnesota nice, but he is really having trouble raising money. He went on on Pod Say
I
It
saw
with
it.
the Pod Bros.
I saw it. It was car
Yeah.
crash.
And he refused to explain why they won't release the autopsy.
Yes.
I think you and I both know why they won't release the autopsy, and I think some of it has to do with the Middle East.
Yes, I think there's many things that Kamala Harris got wrong that they probably don't want to talk about. But one of the big ones that we already know from a lot of reporting and from groups like the IMEU, which is a pro-Palestine think tank in DC, which has been in conversations with the DNC about their postmortem. Yes, they've acknowledged now what some of us said at the time, which was that Gaza would cost you votes. Gaza would cost the Democrats votes in places like Michigan. And I think you and I, Molly, were chatting the other day offline about the Bulwark folks and that clip that's doing the rounds of them saying, and I have great respect for Sarah and Tim, know them well, but they were saying on the eve of the election, oh yeah, she's definitely going to win Michigan. This centrist messaging is exactly what the public need. There was no factoring in of what happens if the left stay home. What happens
Right.
if minority communities stay home? This idea that there was nowhere else for people to go. Yeah, there is the couch. The
Yeah.
couch was for people to go home. Forget Jill Stein. Forget people who defected to Trump. What about the people who just didn't show up? And we've seen that in the polling since. Even Kamala Harris kind of nodded to it in her memoir. But they really screwed up. And Ken
Yeah.
Martin not being able to say why they won't publish it. We all know why. And by the way, Ben Wickler from Wisconsin was a much better candidate for that job and
Right.
didn't get
Much
that
better.
job.
Yeah.
Again, you need a populist. You need an
And
insurgent, not an
and the
establishment person.
And the reason he didn't get that job is that the DNC chair is elected by state party chairs. So Ken Martin had been the Minnesota party chair. He had a relationship with all these state party chairs. And
Yeah.
so they all voted for him, which I think is a really good example of the ways in which, like, for example, Democrats don't have an age limit on committee chairs. So if you're a committee chair, if you chair oversight or you chair whatever, you chair, judiciary, there's no age cutoff. Republicans have an age cutoff. So
Yeah.
that means that you have these people in Congress serving on these committees way longer than they should.
We should have age cutoffs everywhere, including for
Yeah.
freaking president. I'm fed up with
Yeah.
the gerontocracy in this country. I think it's absurd that we have an age limit on who can run for president. 35 is the limit. You have to be 35 or more to run for president, but there's no upper issue.
Right.
There's a lower limit, but there's not an upper limit. I think it's absurd. We've seen that with Trump. We've seen that with Biden. Trump is bragging about acing his dementia test just
Right.
yesterday. That's the timeline we live in now, where the president
Yeah.
brags about acing a dementia test, man, person, camera, TV, whatever the shit that was. And yeah, I agree with you. And I think, look, the Democratic Party is super out of touch. The leadership is super old. Chuck Schumer's got to go. Graham Plattner said that to me on his show recently. Chuck Schumer's got to go. In Michigan, whether it's Mallory McMorrow or Abdul Al-Sayed, God help us if it's Haley Stevens, but if it's Mallory
Yeah.
McMorrow or Abdul Al-Sayed, they both said, we will not vote for Chuck Schumer to be leader of our party in the Senate if we get there.
Let's do a minute on this Democratic primary in Michigan. So it's a very late primary. They do
Yes.
not vote until August. Okay. It's gotten very ugly. Michigan, I want to actually go back to Michigan because Michigan was this, the Bulwark crew felt that Michigan would come out for Liz Cheney. Michigan has a
Liz Cheney,
large,
not just Liz Cheney. They also sent Richie Torres.
right.
And they sent Bill Clinton, who gave a lecture about the history of the Bible and why the land is Jewish.
Yeah. There's a pretty big Muslim population in Michigan.
Is there? No idea. I had no idea. Nor did the Harris
And-
campaign, apparently.
Yes, nor did the Harris. And in fact, they so alienated the Muslim population in Michigan that some of the mayors went to Trump.
Yes. Look, I'm not defending.
Dearborn, right? Dearborn?
Well, no. The mayor of Dearborn is Abdullah Hamid, very good guy, rising star in the Democratic Party.
Okay.
He had issues with Kamala Harris. She didn't want to meet, et cetera,
Yeah,
et
she
cetera.
wouldn't
But he
meet with
didn't-
him,
But he
yeah.
didn't vote for Trump. It was a
Right.
different mayor of Dearborn Heights, different
Okay.
part, who did, and they got ambassador jobs. And then there was a guy in Hamtramck, Michigan, another very
Right.
Arab American town who supported Trump. And then there were these imams who went on stage with him. I interviewed one
Yeah.
of them. They said Trump is the candidate of peace. I'd love to get that imam back on the show now and ask
I
him how
don't
he
think
feels about that.
he's-
But he
I don't
doesn't want to
think
come
he's
back on the show,
coming back.
weirdly. We've
Yeah.
asked. Weirdly, doesn't want to come back on defend that. So, look, yes, did some Arab Americans Muslim Americans in places like Michigan fall for the Trump bullshit that he was
Yeah.
going to be anti-war. Yes.
And did some
Did
Jews, by the way? I mean, did some African Americans, did some,
Yes,
Latino
exactly.
voters? Yeah.
I think we have to be, look, I'm glad you brought Michigan because, especially
Yeah.
for a liberal audience, it's a little bit
Yeah.
nuanced. Let me unpack it very quickly. Yes, some Muslim Americans did defect to Trump in big numbers in some of these parts, including prominent figures who got jobs out of it. And that
Yeah.
some of them believed the bullshit that Trump would be
Yeah.
anti-war. And by the
Yeah.
way, the anti-war lane was left empty by Kamala Harris, who decided to
Yeah.
campaign with Liz Cheney, warmonger. So when
Right.
Trump said Liz Cheney's going to send your kids to die in the Middle East or going to kill your families in Lebanon, they believed him. He was lying,
Yeah.
and they believed him. I'm not
Yeah.
defending them, but that was the situation.
Yeah.
Having said that, it really annoys me when you go on a blue sky and you see kind of white liberals saying, "Ha ha, Muslims, you all voted for this." Well, first of all, a majority of Muslims voted for the Democratic candidate. Let's just be clear
Right.
about that.
Right.
And number two, Jill Stein, and I was not a fan of Jill Stein, didn't actually make the difference. Like, even if Jill Stein hadn't run, he still would have, he won Michigan. There's much deep-seated issues that the Democratic Party has to deal with. Every time the Democrats lose, they can't just blame Jill Stein, Russia, this group of
Right.
voters, that group. You have to take
Right.
responsibility for the campaign you ran, for the
Yes.
decisions you made. And I think, and by the way, in a place like Michigan, one thing I said at the time was, I think I knew that Donald Trump would be worse than Kamala Harris on the Middle East
Yeah,
and
of
on war.
course.
Having said that, I could never, and I'm not a politician, so I don't have to, but I could never go to a family in Dearborn, Michigan, who've lost like 50 people in Gaza and say, you
Yeah.
must vote for Kamala Harris
Right.
and Joe Biden.
Of course
Right?
not.
That's the reality. A lot of these people in Michigan had lost not one, not two, dozens of family members in Gaza. And
Kat
Kamala Harris wasn't
Abdallah.
even willing to go there. She didn't even go
Yeah.
to Dearborn to talk to them. Trump did.
Yeah. Listen, everyone I knew who was Palestinian, I would say, is everybody okay there? And they would say they're dead. They're all dead. Like, it was just the entire family's decimated. But I also think when I think about when I went to the Democratic convention in Chicago,
Yes.
one of the things that I saw was that they would not have a Muslim speaker,
A
which
Palestinian woman who was endorsing Harris, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't have her on stage.
they wouldn't have her on stage. That was number one. And then they had Hassan Piker there, but they wouldn't really let him
Well, they
do
kicked him
stuff.
out, didn't they, halfway through? That was before he had become a national villain for Fox and co.
Right. But he was there, and I saw them. I couldn't tell if they had kicked him out or he had
Yeah.
left. It did not seem he was not getting the same welcome that the rest of us were, which I think is the point of
Yeah,
this,
They handled it very badly. And this race in Michigan, again, the party establishment basically backed Haley Stevens, who is the AIPAC-backed candidate, the centrist candidate. It's not just that her views on Israel are horrific. Her views on most things are horrific. She's also a robot when you hear her speak. Did you see her
She's
go to this ICE detention facility and come out and say, well, they've got female guards? Woo!
Yeah.
You can't make that shit up.
1990s
It's like,
girl boss
yeah,
energy.
exactly. At least the ICE detention camp is run by women. She's awful. Luckily, the polls show she's in third place.
Yeah. She's also
Mallory-
just a very poor speaker.
Poor speaker, just a
Yeah, go
completely charisma-free zone. Mallory McMorrow is a very good speaker. I remember interview after she first went viral as a state rep many years ago.
Yeah.
She's running against Abdul El Sayed, who is this Muslim American, Arab American doctor who ran against Gretchen Whitmer in the gubernatorial primary as a Bernie back guy a few years ago. He's actually had a boost recently, which is funny because he also got heavily attacked for campaigning with Hassan Piker in
Yeah.
Michigan. Guess
Yeah.
what? It didn't actually backfire on him. It actually boosted him in the polls because young people, they actually like some of this stuff, funnily enough. So yeah, it's a very close race. We did a poll for Zeteo recently with Dropside. It's a kind of dead heat three ways, but Abdul seems to be having a boost. Mallory is another strong candidate. She's been criticized for her shifting positions on Israel. Israel keeps coming back to the race. I know it bothers people, but guess
Right.
what? The Democratic base actually care about genocide abroad.
Well, and I also think it is a really big issue because we are right now in a war with Iran.
Yes.
That has to do a lot with Netanyahu,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Where Netanyahu basically tricked Trump into getting into it. And it's not and as a Jew, I'm telling you, it's not anti-Semitic to say that the leader of Israel is super corrupt and has our president wrapped around his little finger.
Well, some people would say this, anti-Semitic say that. So,
Right.
but
But
let me
as a
just say
Jew,
this.
I'm
But it's
telling
not
you,
true,
it's not.
obviously.
It's not anti-Semitic.
Even as a non-Jew, it's common sense tells
Yeah.
you to report what you see with your eyes and ears. Netanyahu himself said, "I couldn't. 40 years I waited for Trump to
Yeah.
do this war." One thing I would say about Michigan that's really important and about the race there, which is people care about genocide. But the other issue is, and my good friend Ryan Grimm of Dropsite, we did the poll together. He made a very good point. He said Israel's not just about Israel. AIPAC's not just about Israel. It's a proxy for other things.
Right.
The voters want to see that if you can't stand up to Benjamin Netanyahu, and if you can't stand against these dumb wars that we all hate, why should we trust you on other issues? Why do we see you as a strong person? Biden was seen as weak for not being able to restrain Benjamin Netanyahu. That added to the ambient noise about this guy being weak and just
For
not a
sure.
strong leader. So it's not just about Israel, although Israel itself matters, but also what does Israel stand for within the Democratic Party debate when it comes to fighters?
And I think that we're out of time, but I do think like Haley Stevens is is the weakest of the three candidates. Just when you
Yes,
hear her speak like a
agreed.
person, and why you would endorse that person is just baffling.
I mean, establishment. I mean, this is Chuck Schumer. He picks awful people. He doesn't have a good track record of picking people.
Don't make me defend Chuck Schumer, but he did do it. North Carolina and Ohio, both good candidates.
Yes, I mean, look, okay,
Sorry.
he's not across the board bad, but he has some pretty bad judgments. I think Maine is pretty humiliating for
Yeah,
him.
humiliating.
You know,
Yeah.
I think there's no other word but saying humiliating. Look, I think there's a consensus view now that he's got to go. I mean, I
Right.
think both him and Hakeem Jeffries both have to go. But
Yeah.
Schumer is way more unpopular. You look at the polling;
Way.
he's more unpopular than he's ever been. He
Yeah.
probably won't run for re-election to the Senate because he knows he'll be humiliatingly defeated
Yeah.
in a primary, if not by AOC, then by someone else. So I think it would be mad if everyone knows he's on his way out for him to try and be leader again. My position has been very
I
simple.
agree.
He lost the Senate, so you should have stepped down as leader then. When you
Yeah.
lose an election, you should
Yeah.
step down. We should
Yeah.
make that the norm in America. You lose an election, you step down. You don't go, I lost, but I'm going to try again. No, you lost.
Agreed.
Let someone else do it. So the fact that he's still the Senate leader for Democrats is insane to me.
Insane. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Maddie.